Welcome to Sparked,
the podcast where stories ignite confidence.
and bold women light the way.
Hey everyone, welcome to the third episode of the Spark podcast.
I'm Ellie.
I'm Leah.
And I'm Mira. We are three freshmen who created the Spark podcast to spotlight female trailblazers who are making a real change in the world.
We started this podcast because as freshmen, we are just beginning to explore who we want to be and what we want to pursue in our lives.
Each episode, we will talk to a woman who has broken barriers, built their career with purpose, and most importantly, found their spark.
And today, we are thrilled to be interviewing Nina Shah, an inspiring hematologist-oncologist whose focus is on the treatment of multiple myeloma.
She was a professor at UCSF and is now the global head of multiple myeloma clinical development and strategy at AstraZeneca, which is a biopharmaceutical company.
We hope you enjoy!
Dr. Shah, just starting off, could you tell us a little bit about your story and what first sparked your interest in the medical field?
Yeah, thanks so much. So I'm Nina Shah, and I am by trade an oncologist focusing on a hematologic or a blood cancer called multiple myeloma. And I've wanted to be in healthcare, I think, since I was a kid. But I would say, when you're growing up, it's like one of those things where people always say, okay, I was pretty smart. So my mom would say, well, you could be a doctor because that was considered to be a very smart thing, but you don't really understand what it means to do that. Back then we didn't have as many choices in career. We didn't realize all the things that were out there in the world, but it all worked out great because in ninth grade, I took this biology class, and it was one of these classes where you really learn about all the systems. Like you learn about the insect system, like what the grasshopper and the mammals and all the different organs. And I was just like, I loved it. And you know how you know you love a class? It's when you don't look at the clock. And so that happened to me. And I thought one day when I didn't look at the clock for 45 minutes, like, this is it. This is my calling. I want to do biology. And it turned out to be perfect because not only did I love science and biology, but I also love people. So it turned out to be great to go into a field like medicine where you can use skills for both of those. So I'd say since ninth grade, I've wanted to be in the medical field or something with biology. And then as I got older and through high school and ultimately went to college, one of the things I started really getting into was immunology. And I think it's really interesting because the immune system can play so many different roles in our lives. So an immune system can be overactive and give you things like allergies or an autoimmune disease, but it also can be underactive. And we don't realize how much we depend on our immune system. Of course, without a perfectly acting immune system, you can have immunodeficiency and get sick easily, but you can also have cancer. And this is one of the things that became a hypothesis going into the 2000s, early 2000s. I didn't even realize it, but I was on my own journey, and it turned out that being interested in immunology and biology turned out to be a great thing to fuel my interest in being a hematologist-oncologist and using the immune system to fight cancer. So that's ultimately how I landed on my journey to become a myeloma doctor and study immunotherapy.
Um, I think it's really interesting how, you really found your spark at like a very young age and just like through how, being so invested in a topic and really learning that that was how like, that you can take those paths and that you can really start to like grow your interest in things at such a young age and just like, that telltale sign like not looking at the clock, like that's such like a small detail, but it can change the trajectory of your life. And I think that's super interesting. So, kind of adding on to that, you've built your career around something that combines medicine, research, as well as global leadership. And did you specifically plan that path, or did it evolve as went through your residency in college, etc.?
That's a great question because I think what I can say to all of us today, those four of us sitting here, is we have no idea what the next 10 years, 12 years, 20 years going to bring. And you can always expect that when you look back, you'll say, wow, I never expected this. And that's one of the greatest things about life. And we should all embrace that and own that. I never thought I'd be sitting here as the global clinical head of multiple myeloma of AstraZeneca. No way. I never thought that. And the reason is that when I first started getting interested in medicine, I thought, well, I like biology, I like people. I thought I was going to be a family practice doctor. I was going to be the primary care physician that you guys all see, every year for your annual checkup. I thought about actually being a pediatrician for a very long time. And only when I was in medical school did I really understand that I wanted to do oncology, hematology. It just, there was a class I took one day. My first year of med school, I think. They had a session on hematology, and I was just like, this is it. I want to do this. And so that just led me down that path. Now I wasn't going to be a primary care doctor anymore. I was going to do that. But even in residency, going through internal medicine, and really, I knew I was going to do oncology. So I really tried to focus on trying to get into oncology fellowship. And when I got into oncology, I was already into immunology, so I started doing that. I did all the things that move you through that, and I became on faculty at MD Anderson and then at UCSF. And I started getting the understanding that in order for patients to get new treatments, there have to be new drugs developed. And in order to do this, you have to do clinical trials. And so, because I was in the oncology field, I started getting more interacting. I started interacting more with the pharmaceutical companies because we would be the physicians that were helping put patients on trials. And I started to see how the pharmaceutical companies and different biotechs, whether they're small or large, think about how to develop a drug to get it to the right patients, but also in the fastest way possible. And that's a lot of strategy. So I started getting really interested in the strategy role. And then this job opened up, and it was perfect for me. But I never would have thought that I'd be sitting here as somebody who doesn't practice medicine 5 days a week, even though I still love it and I still do practice a little bit. And now my main job is really doing strategy for drug development for oncology drugs. So I never thought it was going to be that way, but I'm thrilled to be able to have this opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting to hear about how like the kind of shift, but also realizing, like the impact you can have in like different like areas of the medical field. And so when you mentioned you were the clinical head of global research at AstraZeneca, we were wondering what does like that really mean and what does a typical day look like for you now in that role?
Yeah. So to clarify, I'm not all of AstraZeneca, but just the global clinical head for multiple myeloma. And what that means is I develop the strategy to develop the different drugs that we have in our portfolio or shape the portfolio to really make a difference for multiple myeloma patients. So at heart, I'm really still a multiple myeloma doctor. That's what I every day, that's what I do. That drives me that I know a lot. I have many patients with this disease because that's what I specialized in was when I was at UCSF. I still have some of those patients actually. And I think about what it is that they're going through every day. And for any of you who've ever had a relative who's had cancer, every single day that this person is fighting cancer is a day of uncertainty and also a day of opportunity and a day of hope, but also a day of struggle. So all of these things come into play when I think about would this drug have a good place in the role in the landscape of multiple myeloma treatments? And so my job is to look at preclinical data along with the scientists, but also think about how to start the first in human trials, how to really assess safety of a drug, and then evaluate whether this could be an efficacious drug. Does it have activity? And then see what other studies are required to make the proof and prove to the FDA that this works, so that we can ultimately make the drugs available for the myeloma patients, and not just one drug or one modality. So, for example, we're working on this T cell therapy, but then there's another portfolio program I'm working on, which is using an antibody conjugated to a drug, what we call antibody drug conjugates. And we use different drugs that work in different ways to really round out the patient's experience. So that's kind of the strategic role I'm playing at AstraZeneca for this disease. And that's why it's really fun, because I'm really driven by trying to decrease the amount of disease a patient has, but doing it in a patient-centric way, understanding that every patient that is suffering from any cancer is not just a patient, they're a person.
Thank you so much for that. I know you said earlier that you love interacting with patients and also just kind of creating relationships with people. And in your role, like your role right now, I know you do like a lot of clinical stuff, but we were wondering earlier, as a fellow or like practicing more often, did you have, um, has a patient or student taught you something that changed the way you see your work?
Yeah, I think patients are our biggest teachers. So when you're initially practicing medicine, you're not sure of yourself, right? So you're just doing everything you're looking things up, and after a while, you get to be good at it because you understand the routine, et cetera, and you become really efficient at it. And when you're a young physician, you're just trying to get everything done as much as possible, trying to make the right diagnosis, get the right treatments. And then as you get a little bit more developed, you can start letting the patients in a little bit more. And I think this comes with confidence. So early on, what I've learned from the patients is the disease parts, right? What are the signs and symptoms from a patient that teach me about the disease and getting better at pattern recognition? Those are the things that you learn as you practice more and more. And as I shifted into sort of the middle part of my career, I started opening myself up more personally because again, I'm an oncologist and these people are going through a lot. Patients every day is a struggle for them. And I started having more personal relationships with my patients. And what I mean by that is every visit, and I remember this very specifically, like probably just like mid-career, like just as after I'd become an associate professor, I started asking more about, how are you doing? I knew all the details. I'm good at that. Like I'm good at personal details. So I knew their kids were, having a baby, or I knew that they had just retired, or I knew that they bought a vacation house, or whatever they did. And I would ask about it. And then I'd open up myself. They would say, "Oh, how are your kids doing?" And, all these things. And I didn't feel so weird doing it anymore because I felt that that was another dimension I could connect with patients. And once I did that, it made me better understand how the patients were feeling getting these therapies and made me more, it made me closer to them. It's like, and it's not a bad thing. And I always joke, like, I started giving out my cell phone number to patients. Like, I just didn't care. I didn't, everyone gets so worried that the patients will be calling all the time. They don't. Most people are very respectful. They understand you have a life and they only contact you if necessary. But I felt that a lot of patients liked having that, hey, if I really need you, I can call you. So that's one of the things I learned from people. If I open up and I let you into my life and you open up and we have that more shared understanding, I can actually be a better physician to that patient.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I think it's really interesting how, those bonds with your patients can really contribute to how you build up your drug and make it the most effective. So, kind of on a different note, what does it really mean to you to be a woman of color in medicine and leadership? And what has been the hardest challenge that you've had to push through?
I think that this is a really good question and one that I think I'm really fortunate, first of all, because when I went to college, I went to med school, I felt the world was open to all people of color, actually. I felt between the 90s and 2000s that we had this opportunity. It was a really big growth phase in the American culture. And I never felt at a disadvantage for being a woman of color, a woman, first of all, or a woman of color at that time. Now, I was young and I was just blazing, right? Like I just like, I'm going, I'm doing it. And what I realized is the more difficult part about, first of all, being a woman in medicine is understanding that as your life gets more complicated, it's hard to do everything. So being a woman in medicine or in biotech or any field, and excelling at any field means that you also have to think about how you're going to manage your time and your emotional energy at home. And we all grow up and want to have kids and families and or not. Maybe we want to have pets or we want to take care of our parents, whatever it is. You do something else outside of work. And how do you maintain the energy to do that if you're giving so much to work, right? You're giving so much emotional energy. Like I was just saying, I was giving more to my patients and, the day-to-day energy of getting to work and rounding and all those things and thinking about all the labs and procedures. So that has been a challenge, I think, for me as a woman, trying to do everything. I think you'll hear this very frequently about doing everything at the same time, all at once, I guess, to try to be successful. As a woman of color, I never felt like I was at a disadvantage, except that maybe maybe if I take a step back, I realize that women of color are we're fine at this level I'm at, but it's hard to get to the next level. It's hard to get to the leadership level. It's hard to, and I don't know whether it has to be about women or women of color or both or the Venn diagram of that, but I find that there's fewer of us at the next level, fewer department chairs, fewer EVPs. Actually, our EVP is a woman, thank God, at AstraZeneca in oncology R&D. But just at that level, there's fewer women because I don't know. I don't know if we burn out or we feel we can't, we don't have the confidence, or I don't know what it is. But I think that that's really where the rubber meets the road as we get into those higher levels of organizational management.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting to notice. I don't know if you know this, but Alimir and I, we all go to an all-girls school,
Yes, love it.
which, yeah, which we really love. And that's kind of taught us like a lot of the you can like do anything if you like put your mind to it mindset. And I think that's really important, especially we have a lot of female role models and women of color role models who are women of color. I think that's really important to have, especially at a young age. So moving on to the next question, like what are some skills that you have found really important in your career? And like what would you tell young women who want to have a career in medicine like Ellie? so they can start like building now.
I think so I always tell my kids three rules. I don't know if they follow them, but we'll see. Um, First of all, work hard. There is nothing in life that's free. Whatever you do, you've got to put your nose to the grindstone and work hard. And you'll see that when you work hard, first of all, you get things done, you learn more, you are able to become an expert more quickly, you get more gratification from work. It's so great to like do a project, throw all in, and that night you're like, oh my God, I feel so great. I turned that thing in, right? Isn't it so satisfying? So working hard is so satisfying. It's good for your mental health. And people see you work hard. If you're truly diligent and sincere and honest in your work and good and well intentioned, even if you don't always have the right answer, but your process is clear, which is to get to the answer in an ethical way and in a hardworking way, people will see that and you will be valued for that. You'll be valued as a very good team member. So that's always my first rule, work hard. The next is be nice. So seems simple, but it's actually not that simple. We're all in this space where we're trying to get as many things done as possible. Even in high school, you guys are trying to compete for first place or valedictorian or all these other things that happen. And as long as you can do them with with emotional intelligence of being nice, a good intention, even if you don't achieve that, being nice is going to be more important than the achievement that you have. And it's so there's nothing more that better. There's nothing more important than being a good person. And this will carry you because no matter what happens in your career, you won't look back and say, "Oh, I was awful. Like I really regret that I treated someone that way." No, you'll just not do that. And yes, maybe you may not become the president of the company or the CEO or whatever, but it's okay. And then my third rule for my kids is do your homework. So it's like work hard, be nice, do your homework, which is come to things prepared. So you're going to go to a meeting, make sure you know what you're doing at that meeting. Make sure you know who's going to be there. I say that, I don't always do it, but man, when I don't, I sometimes get in trouble myself. I could see, oh, I looked really bad. And then when I do prepare, it's like, wow, this meeting is really productive. I used 10 minutes to prepare. I did my homework, and now these 40 minutes that I have to be in this meeting are productive. I can end the meeting early, yay. And I can also we can take it to the next step. We're not just restating a slide deck or restating a problem that the patient has or whatever. I actually read about the patient before going in the room or something. So I always say, work hard, be nice, do your homework. And I think these things have been so important to guide me because that's probably one of the skills I have is people skills. So if I can do that well and still work hard, I can probably get further in my mission to do something good for myeloma patients.
Yeah, thank you so much. Those skills are just, they're so valuable just everywhere in our lives. And kind of shifting gears, especially working in oncology and in biotech with like clinical trials and stuff, I know can maybe be disheartening sometimes if a clinical trial doesn't have the results that, I don't know, like they just like don't work out. So we were wondering how you protect your mental health in such a high pressure field.
This is a really important question because it's going to happen to everybody, no matter what field they're in. There's always going to be failure. And one of the things that I'm learning more and more as I get into understanding more about leadership, et cetera, and as I grow, is that you have to live your life, especially in these really high powered jobs, right? You have to accept a certain percentage of entropy, failure, chaos, and things just not going your way. It's not a one off thing, it's not putting out fires. You have to understand every day you're going to have some failure. And as long as you go back to the process of did I do everything possible to ensure that this was going to go the best way, given what it was going to be? I did it. Okay. Then I don't have to feel bad about myself. I can mourn the loss of this program. Maybe this drug didn't work and I can mourn that. That's okay. But it makes me able to sleep at night knowing that it's not because I was lazy. It's not because I didn't try. We have this thing that I've been learning a lot more about fail fast, which is if something's going to fail, figure it out. And because there will be failures, all prototypes, all, everything, there's always failure. But figure it out fast. Don't hang on to an idea because you're emotionally attached to it. Don't hang on to a project, a program, a drug, a potential, extracurricular. Like don't hang on to it because you think you should do it or like you're just resistance. Do it because it's the right thing, and if not, stop, because you're wasting your time, your energy, and other resources that could be really diverted to something more productive. So that's kind of how I keep myself sane. But you have to accept that when you have a failure, you've got to mourn it, and that just give yourself the space to do that because it's not you're not inhuman, right? You're a human person, so you want to make sure that you take the time to say, "Wow, that didn't go, and what can I learn from it?" But did I do the right thing? 80% I did. This part I could have done better. Okay, next time I'll do that. That's probably the only way you can survive all the failures, which are bound to happen in everybody's career.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really like how you said that if you do fail, and you will fail a lot of times in your life, or you do make a mistake, it's really important that you just tried your best and you worked your hardest to make sure that you can really learn from those mistakes and you can make it so that next time you will know what to do. You won't make that mistake. You won't fail that time. Um, and I think that's really valuable to learn, especially as, a high school student or just really anyone. So, what has been your favorite or most rewarding part of your job so far?
Oh, hands down, it's patient interaction. There's like nothing. Again, I'm a people person, so maybe I have actually a couple of things that have been rewarding, but the number one is just being able to, um, I mean, there's something about it, being able to impact someone's life in a positive way. Like there have been things that I've been able to do that, really are a privilege. Like I went to my patient's 80th birthday party, for example. Sometimes my patients send me random messages, even still, like, you made a big impact in my life. And of course, there's an ego strip, but there's also a privilege to that, because you know that you made someone's life better just by taking them on a journey. I didn't develop that drug that they got, but at least they were able to get something and feel supported. And there have been times where I've really developed like personal relationships with patients, and it's been very rewarding to know, and I know what's going on with their kids and their family. So that's the number one thing. The other thing is pure camaraderie. So when you're in a field, whatever it is, you'll start to get more like you guys have each other now, but like as you get into different, like whatever schools you go to, all your classes, but then when you get into your career, you start to make these friends and you see them. Maybe they don't always work with you, but you guys always go in this like Brownian motion of like bumping into each other, same field, same technology area, same area of expertise, and you bump into each other and you always like there are people I know from oncology that I always see them at these conferences, and they have become a really important source of support and mentorship, peer mentorship, and resource. So we actually rely on each other. Now, many of these people, actually, most of them are women that are also in oncology. And when we rely on each other for everything from like, oh, have you seen a case like this? To like, I'm looking for a new job, to I'm moving to a new place, to I'm trying to manage this little like conflict I'm having in my office, to building each other up. Like, hey, I put you up for this talk, and I think you're going to do really, or I nominated you for this committee or this clinical trial. Like, we really try to help each other, and that's been such a rewarding friendship because it's not like the friends you have, like people you go out with on Friday night, but there's a different kind of peer friendship and mentorship that you have that's very rewarding.
Yeah, I think that's really important, the connections you have with not only your patients, but your colleagues. And my mom talks a lot about that. Like sometimes we're out in like the most random place and she's like, oh, that's someone I work with. And she goes up and says hi to them. And it's really fun watching them, just talk. And moving on to a different question, we are growing up a lot in like the AI revolution, or like where AI has become such a huge part of our lives now. And we were wondering how AI has impacted your field a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, first of all, I mean, it's like you can't go anywhere and not. It's like bingo, right? You have to have AI on your bingo board. It's so great that you guys are doing this now. I'm the first word that AI has inspired in me is anxiety because I'm worried that as smart as I am, I haven't learned. I know I haven't learned all the things that AI can do and how it's going to change because I'm working in this old way of working, right? So I haven't learned how to do all the prompts and all the coding and like I'm learning that and I'm like actually literally doing that today because our work has a coursework that you can do for this, and I don't even understand all the words, so it's causing me a lot of anxiety. That being said, I also think there are many things that can be done more efficiently with AI, and this is coming. This is a definite thing we all have to not only prepare for, we have to embrace because it's going to be important for us to use it in the right way, the ethical way, and a productive way. So I think that for biotech, it is impacting every part of it from drug discovery, chemistry, developing the right molecule, the right way to interact with a certain target discovery, then goes into clinical trial design, statistics, then even document writing, all the things we have to write for the FDA. I mean, pages and pages of documents, getting that more streamlined, and then going into predicting how patients are going to do, safety signals, what should be watching out for, how we conduct clinical trials. And ultimately, when we get the drug approved, going backwards and understanding now that patients are getting it, how are we streamlining all that data to understand truly what the real world effect is. So every part of drug development is being impacted by AI in a good way, I think. But I think a lot of us who are in our mid 40s and 50s who are working in these fields are like, oh, I got to learn all this. And it's producing a little bit of anxiety, but I'm hoping that I'll rise to the challenge. I haven't really gotten exactly where I'm sure your mom feels the same way. Haven't gotten exactly where I want to be, but it takes time to learn. It's really taught me that curiosity is something you need to make time for on your calendar.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I feel like we've heard so much about AI kind of inducing a lot of fear and also anxiety, kind of like you were saying, in a lot of jobs, but also it's amazing to hear how like there's a lot of possibility in like for what AI can do in your career. And I think that wraps it up for all our questions. So, yeah, thank you so much for speaking with us. We learned so much about your career and also just like the biotech industry and like your specialties, and it was just so inspiring. And I definitely want to learn more about the medical field, like after listening to you.
Oh, that's great. I hope I inspired you to go into medicine. I think it's a wonderful career for women. Any healthcare professional, any of those fields, great because it takes the strength of many women I know, which is being super smart, analytical, detail oriented, and being able to really connect with people and understand what people may be going through. And the intersection of those two things, I think, just makes medicine such a great career for women. And it's one of those things where you can do it a little bit or a lot. You can work part time. You don't have to, but you can go all the way and be a department chair or a CEO or not. But you can always still have that feeling that you're making a positive impact for some people in the world.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming and taking your time to join us. It was really interesting to hear you talk. And my mom doesn't really tell me much about her job. And I know you guys are in different fields, but it was really interesting to hear more about you. And also, my mom says hi. So
Thanks.
it
Great to meet you guys.
was nice to meet you too.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate, coming here and talking to us about like your journey and, going over different hurdles and how you managed it. So thank you so much.
Dr. Shaw, thank you for sharing how you've combined medicine, research, and leadership into such a powerful and impactful career.
Learning about your journey has been incredibly inspiring for us to hear.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us for our third episode. We can't wait to keep sharing more stories of women redefining what's possible.
Thank you.